Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Well, as you can tell from the title, we are going to keep rolling right on along here with the DM guide, taking a look at the zombie apocalypse. Now, last time around we talked about encounters, but this time I wanted to talk about loot. The rewards, the pay that the players are going to get after overcoming all the different myriad encounters that you can throw at them. Now, it gets to be a little bit different with the zombie apocalypse, though a lot of the principles still apply that we talked about before. I call it principles like it's something fancy. You need to tailor the loot to the players. At least to a certain extent you need to. You can certainly do some random loot generation if you want. That's going to be handy, but because it's a zombie apocalypse survival scenario, certain things are going to change. For example, there are going to be some basic factors of everyday life that we take for granted that are just no longer going to exist. So, everyday items are going to take on a much more premium level of importance. I mean, just bear in mind the fact that I recommend that for this kind of a setting, you're tracking things like food, medicine, ammunition, fuel, stuff like that, building materials even. The different materials that the players will need for constructing their defenses, their bases, building towers, building just even shops and putting together the hardware and materials necessary to make repairs on their cars, or even just make their own equipment, building their own forges and the like. It's doable, but it's going to take time, and those tools are going to become more and more important. So those very easily can be made into lootable items, different rewards that you can give to your players. Hell, giving them a duffel bag or different kinds of backpacks or camel packs, things that are able to increase their carrying capacity, are going to be huge, absolutely worthwhile reward items for your players. And you can even just throw in some random stuff like a can opener, or even some higher quality like Tupperware or sealing better sealed storage containers for different foodstuffs, for different materials that might otherwise degrade faster. These kinds of things are going to provide immeasurably helpful bonuses that work towards building the player's chances of survivability in the zombie apocalypse. Even rewarding them with things like ammunition is going to go a long way towards making the players feel like they earned something worthwhile. And it doesn't always have to be ammunition that the players can use in their firearms. Just having extra stockpiles of ammunition around, that's a tradable material right there. That's a very easily tradable resource to different groups that may have a need for that specific ammunition type. Assuming you want to get down to that kind of nitty gritty. And honestly, even if you don't want to, your players may want to. And if you just put it on them for the players to track exactly what they have, then hey, they're keeping track of it. You're not having to work quite as much. Just maybe every now and then take a picture of their notes, or just kind of scan them over a little bit to make sure they're not quietly secreting and sneaking some extra things in there, as some of my own players have been known to do from time to time. Josh. But anyways, with that aside, putting together these different kinds of loot items will be just incredible. But there's an extra further step we can take. Now, I should mention that if you're going for something a bit more realistic-ish with the zombie apocalypse, then, this part you might be willing to skip a little bit more. Or you may want to try to find a more reasonable explanation for how this part works. But I still like the idea of giving players equipment that gives them different kinds of bonuses. And one of the easiest things to apply this to are going to be things like firearms or different weapons and the like. Whatever melee implements, firearms, or even defensive items, maybe consider making these items not Magical is not quite the word that I'm looking for, but they don't function quite like a regular version of the item would. You can explain it away as if it's a riot shield, new, enhanced, upgraded polymers for this particular prototype riot shield, only produced in limited capacity and spread out across a number of different police departments in major cities, just to see if they could garner a little bit of interest, garner some new data, and maybe possibly generate an interest within the market that might need that. So the riot shield provides a greater degree of defensive bonuses to the players, or the pistol they've picked up work the action, and it works in such a way that more gases stay behind the bullet as the weapon fires and activates the gunpowder and sends that little deadly piece of metal hurtling down the barrel, or something in the rifling's improved, or something to explain the extra steps, or not extra steps, but the extra performance that the players are able to get from their firearms or weapons. Or you can even just straight up say, hey, you've used this weapon a lot, you've killed hundreds of zombies with it at this point, we're just going to flat out give you an extra d6 of damage, or a d8 of damage, or whatever the case may be. Or you've managed to keep this cloak along and you've repaired it, sewed it, you've gotten better at repairing and keeping it up, that you've actually managed to improve its durability. We're going to give you just a little bit of damage reduction off of these natural attacks, like from clawing and biting that you might get from the different kinds of undead. That so many different ways you could explain extra performance that results from the bonuses that you provide players to their equipment. You can just even explain it away as this particular item performs better because the player's character is just so intimately familiar with operating the item and how it functions. Lord knows that there are some people out there that are just such damn good drivers behind their vehicles that it seems like they're able to push that machine just a bit beyond the capacity of what you think might normally be possible, just because they are so incredibly familiar with the vehicle's handling. They've kept it up, they've kept it in good repair, everything functions and works properly, and they just understand the particular quirks and ticks of that machine, that they are able to give it that extra little bit of an edge as they drive along. Or, at least that's a theory that you could run with in giving players equipment that gives them better degrees of bonuses. Hell, you can even give them fishing or hunting equipment that gives them bonuses on gathering those supplies. Like, oh, this is my lucky fishing rod. I never fail to come back home with at least 3 fish when I use this thing. And this thing gives them a bonus on their survival checks, specifically when they are fishing. Little things like that just add a certain sense of nuance, detail, and that little bit of a personal touch that helps a player to become a bit more defined. The item becomes as much a part of the character's personality as anything else. The equipment begins to define them. Somebody that's a crack shot with their old hunting rifle that they've had since high school, that rifle becomes synonymous with that character in a way. And so that sense of familiarity, that constant or regular use, as well as the maintenance, you can easily start giving them some performance bonuses with that specific weapon. And this helps balance things out a little bit, because maybe the weapon is not the most technologically advanced. It's a old lever action rifle. Sure, it uses 30-06, which is not a bad round by any stretch, but it's only got a 5-round capacity. The scope on it's a little bit older. It's not a hyper advanced thing, but it's got that certain sense of nostalgia about it. The character has had this thing forever. They used it constantly, and they've taken this weapon over picking up, say, a Barrett Light 50 outfitted with the latest scopes, has a beautiful shock absorbing stock on it to help deal with the recoil of such a heavy duty round. and they pass over that, not because, you know, it's not useful or they don't, or they will never use it, but they prefer taking their old familiar rifle just because they're used to that comfortable familiar weight. They're used to the feeling of that wood grain stock. They love the way it fires. They've just had it forever. We're very much nostalgic creatures, and we like to hold on to things. We like to hold on to those memories. And again, it becomes just a part of the character's identity after a certain point. And because it's only that specific bit of equipment that the players get these bonuses from, it's not something that readily applies or jumps from weapon to weapon to weapon, like, say, certain class features would, or certain feats might. Those are all certainly things the player can do, the player's character can do, from equipment to equipment to equipment. But certain bonuses just will come about because of that repeated use and familiarity. And you can explain it as, I mean, you don't even have to really go that far in explaining it, although I do like the sound of that kind of detail and that sort of storytelling and building up characters in that fashion. I'm absolutely all about that. But I mean, we're already playing in a setting that is accepting zombies and zombie plagues as a real thing within the game universe. So giving players equipment that's like, oh, this was designed for killing Zeds and it's going to give you an extra 2d6 points of damage because it's basically the technological equivalent of a Bane weapon. It's like, yeah, you can do that too. And I actually like the sound of that as well. But there's something to be said for being able to reward players not just by the loot that you give them, but by different bonuses that they can get with specific items that see repeated use. And hell, I'm a fan of Zombie Tools, which is located here in my hometown of Missoula, and something like that, something that's built, ready-made, and designed for the zombie apocalypse, I'd be willing to grant different bonuses to. Like, if any of you have ever handled any of Zombie Tools' designs or weapons, they're very robust, very sturdy, made from a well-tempered 5160 spring steel metal, and they're hand-wrapped with American leather, and they typically use aluminum for the scales on the handles. They're absolutely wonderful weapons and incredibly robust and not indestructible, but pretty damn close. Skolagrim, and I'll put a link down in the video description below, shot his, I believe it's called the Mac Daddio. It's basically a Zombie Tools take on the Dadao design from China. Probably butchered that pronunciation. I'm sorry to any of you out there that speak any of the languages from China, but he shoots it with a 22 and it doesn't do much but impact on the finish. He does shoot it with a 7.62 later and it just absolutely annihilates the weapon. But point being, it's able to take some lighter pistol cartridge fire from and stand up to it really well. So if that doesn't give you an idea of how robust and heavy duty these kinds of weapons are and how well heat treated they are to be able to weather that kind of abuse, well, you can easily take a weapon design like that and say, oh, this is harder to sunder, you don't have to put into as much care into it, and rolls of ones, depending on how badly you do, does not automatically mean you are going to break your weapon or it's going to somehow fail on you. It's going to be more robust than that. You can absolutely very easily do that and provide some of these extra bonuses just to help go along with those rewards there and make the players' characters that much more survivable and give them a certain sense of attachment to the loot that you give them beyond the fact that it's meeting their basic survival needs. Now, with that said, I think we're going to go ahead and end it there. I'm going to ponder more on the zombie apocalypse videos, but I think I may well have hit the end point for this. Please let me know what you've thought down in the comments below, and, well, you know what else to do from there. Always happy to have more members and subscribers down here at the Gamers Den. With that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. You guys have yourselves a good night.